This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcasting Network. It is the Thursday edition. It is, It's April 9th, I think? I think it's a Thursday. I'm not positive, but this is the Thursday podcast. Whether or not it's actually Thursday, that doesn't matter anymore. Days don't matter. Time doesn't matter. Honestly, a lot of things don't matter now because, you know, you're cooped up in your house. I'm cooped up in my house. But anyways, welcome to the Thursday episode of the show. And, once again, not that much to talk about today, to be honest. Today we have, we'll go over the Falcons and the Buccaneers. They both released new uniforms. New uniforms. We'll look over those. We'll see if, will the Dolphins trade up? Is that an actual thing that could possibly happen? We'll go over that. Then we'll talk about the Premier League. They got some financial issues amongst most of the teams. We'll talk about little leagues around the country that could cause, because of everything that's going on, could cause a sports recession in little leagues. And then, of course, we'll top it all off with movies 59 through 50 in the Athletics Top 100 Sports Movies. But first, we're going to talk about Mike Gundy. So if you don't know who Mike Gundy is the beautiful mullet-wearing coach from Oklahoma State, from the Cowboys. He is one of those prime meme territory quarterbacks. He's always part of big-time memes throughout Twitter, throughout everything, because he has a magnificent mullet. He is under fire recently. Very similar to how Dabo Swinney was under fire just last week, which I discussed that on the Sunday show. He is under fire, just like Dabo Swinney is, except here's the difference. What he said is a lot more damning than what Dabo Swinney said. So let's recap. Dabo Swinney mentioned that he's optimistic, and we're going to do everything we can to play football in the fall and stuff like that. In my opinion, people are just freaking out over it because they just don't like Dabo for whatever reason. It was just him being optimistic about playing football. He even said, "It's like we'll leave the professionals to figure everything out and stuff like that." But he is confident that they'll play football in the fall. He never said anything. He never said anything that Mike Gundy said here in this article that I'll read in the quotes I will read you in a little bit here. Just to clarify that. So if it seems like my view on this is completely different from the Dabo Swinney view, it's because Mike Gundy said something completely different, first off, and his is a lot more damning and a lot more, able to hate, ready to hate, I guess, than what Dabo Swinney said. Because at the end of the day, what Dabo said was pretty, inconsequential. The only thing that Dabo said that was a huge red flag to me was when he said he might travel on his plane for Easter. Now, that's an issue, of course, but it's his own plane. He can do what you want. That's no different from someone driving to a different city. That's no different. Basically, he's taking a plane that only he's ridden on. He said they're sanitize it, whatever. But anyways, so during a teleconference with reporters on Tuesday, Mike Gundy said he thinks it will be safe for his players to return to campus and return to practice and off-season workouts. He said, "In my opinion, if we have to bring our players back, test them, they're all in good shape. They're all 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22-year-olds. They're healthy. A lot of them can fight it off with their natural body, the antibodies, and the build that they have," he said. "There's some people that are asymptomatic, but if that's true, then we can sequester them." And people say that's crazy. No, it's not crazy, because we need to continue and budget and run money through the state of Oklahoma. So he's basically saying that we're going to bring kids back onto campus, back to Oklahoma State, back to Stillwater, and try to figure out this whole football thing while endangering most of his players. So, health experts do not suggest that young people would be exempt from social distancing practices during this pandemic. The virus can affect all people of all ages. There have been cases of infants getting it from 0 to 2 years old. There are cases of them getting it. So this is just a very wrong point of view. I mean, people of all ages have gotten it. So Gundy said the program will treat the coronavirus like the flu. Anyone who contracts COVID-19 would be quarantined. He goes on to say, we get people that get the flu during the season. We quarantine them, we treat them, we make sure they're healthy, we bring them back. It would be the same thing here, but at some point we've got to go back to work. From what I read, the healthy people can fight this, the antibodies make it better. They're doing some blood transplants now with the people that have already gotten the disease, that have gotten over it, that have the antibodies that can fight it. There's a lot of people who can figure this out. May 1st is our goal. Don't know if it will happen. Players will come in after that. So their current goal is May 1st, which, in case you didn't know, I don't think there's a single sporting event except for UFC's crazy thing, which, I mean, I'll save that for Sunday, I guess. But there is currently no sport that is scheduled before July, I don't think. So I think it's kind of crazy having players come back May 1st. I mean, of course, that's a full month. I mean, things could be completely different. I know some things are kind of improving right now, but I mean, I don't think it's improved well enough for us to kind of shift course and go back to normal just yet. I do understand stuff is getting slightly better as we go on here, and that's because of everything we've done in the past couple weeks. But we're going to have to keep doing it if we want to keep seeing those numbers down. If we get out of quarantine, if people stop social distancing and stuff like that, if we go back to normal, if we go and act like everything's back to normal, then guess what? The numbers are going to spike up. We're going to get a second wave. So we need to treat this, and I think through the summer is a good idea. I mean, kind of acting like this through the summer. I mean, that means you have all of April, May, June, July, and then we can come back in August. So that's 4 months. 4 months, which is a long time. I'll agree. I might lose my mind by then. I feel like most people will lose their mind, but by then we should look a lot better, especially if things are trending downwards like they are now. We should look a lot better by then. So, anyways, Oklahoma State issued a statement Tuesday night regarding Gundy's comments, saying everyone wants to return to some degree to normalcy as soon as possible. As for Oklahoma State University, we will adhere to the advice of public health experts who are making informed decisions in the best interest of the citizens of our nation based on scientific data. We will not compromise the health and well-being of our campus community. This virus is deadly, and we will do our part at Oklahoma State to help blunt this spread. So, the school pretty much came out and said that, no, that's not happening. We're not doing that. So, that's good to know. But a lot of Mike Gundy is definitely under fire because of his comments here. I know, and in my opinion, it's kind of well-deserved because he actually had a plan to have kids come back onto campus and kids get ready to play football underneath this whole pandemic thing. So I kind of understand that this kind of deserves more heat than what Dabo said, and I'm not trying to deflect what Dabo said. What Dabo said was pretty bad. I'll agree. I'll admit to that. I don't think it's as bad as some people have said, but I don't think it's that bad. But Mike Gundy here, what he's doing here, that's kind of crazy. But he told reporters that he realizes the seriousness of the pandemic, but he also thinks it's important for people to get back to their normal routines soon. I'm not taking away from the danger of people getting sick. You have the virus. Stay healthy. Try to do what we can to help people that are sick, and we're losing lives, which is just terrible. The second part of it is that we still have to schedule and continue to move forward as life goes on and help those people. I understand where he's coming from here. He's basically saying we can't just let life stop forever because of this. And I've seen some people on Twitter, some people on Reddit saying that we may never handshake again, have handshakes ever again because of this. I think that's a little crazy, but but the fact of the matter is we're still in the thick of it. Like, we are nowhere near the end of this whole thing. Nowhere near. Just saying. I don't want to spread fear. I never want to spread fear, especially since you're coming to this to listen to sports and I mean, to be fair, there's no sports going on. But in my opinion, I mean, It's just, you still have to be cautious. You still have to think about other people. You still have to social distance and all that. You may not like it. I don't like it. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like it, but it's necessary. It's necessary to curb this thing, flatten the curve at least. So our hospitals and stuff are not overwhelmed with all of the cases here. But, so yeah, I mean, let me know what you think about Mike Gundy. Think about his views on this whole thing. Is it better or worse than what Dabo said? I personally think it's worse, but, other people may have different opinions. But when we come back, we'll talk about the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They both released new uniforms. We're going to talk about them when we return.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So, one thing about the NFL is that teams are always, changing and getting better and better every year. Well, I mean, uniforms change every once in a while, especially for teams that are kind of struggling. They want to drum up some support to the fan base, and one team that is definitely benefiting from these new uniforms, especially this new uniform reveal, is the team that just got Tom Brady in free agency, which is the main reason this is a big deal, in my opinion. If this was any other day, if this was any other year where Tampa Bay didn't get a huge free agent signing, and they were like, hey, here's our new uniforms, people would just be like, okay, who cares? But it's kind of how people think about the Falcons, except for the Falcons, people had a strong opinion about their uniforms, so we'll get to that when we get to that. So, Tampa Bay, they used to have something called the alarm clock uniforms, which is their numbers look like numbers on an alarm clock. But in their uniform reveal from Monday, or Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday? Hi, Jesus. Days. What are they? They're revealed from Tuesday. They're going back to their roots in 2020 with a new uniform that pays homage to their best years and adds a futuristic twist. They won't be wearing the creamsicle colors from their earliest days, which, I mean, good, to be honest. I mean, I know a lot of people like those, but in my opinion, those are your worst years. Why would you want to relive those? But Buccaneers owner, co-chairman Ed Glazer said in the statement that this new but familiar look is a direct result of valuable feedback we received from our fans. We are excited to return to our classic Super Bowl era uniforms while also introducing a sleek color rush uniform that showcases our signature pewter in a new and dramatic way. The refreshed classic design of our home and away combinations bridges our past with our exciting new future, and we are confident it will resonate with our fans. So, looking at it, you do have the pewter, which is like a weird gray, but they didn't really. I mean, they changed the numbers. Obviously, they changed the numbers to more of an Atlanta Falcons numbers, and this is very funny. Actually, this whole segment's going to be kind of funny because the Buccaneers basically changed their uniforms to look like the Falcons, and then the Falcons changed their uniforms, not to look like the Buccaneers, thankfully, but the Falcons changed their uniform, but the Bucs kind of changed theirs to look like the Falcons. So NFL rules, there's a mandate that NFL rules uniforms can't be changed more than once every 5 years. Wearing the previous uniforms through 2019, the Bucs went 34-62, third worst in the NFL, and did not reach the postseason at all in those 5 years. So you have an all-white combination, which with red letters, red block numbers, and stuff like that. Then you have a red jersey with white block numbers, and then you have the pewter with the red accents and white block numbers. It looks pretty nice. I mean, it's kind of basic in my opinion, but I mean, they look pretty nice. They look better. The numbers look better. They're more readable. So of course, they went back to their they went back to the color scheme that they went to in 1997 under the current ownership Glazer family. They unveiled new color scheme that featured red, black, white, and pewter, which is what they are still wearing now. Team kept that look for 17 years. They went 133, 139, 5 and 6 in the postseason, and they won a Super Bowl. Through that, so the pewter helmet will have an oversized logo that made its debut in 2014, will remain, but will have a black face mask instead of chrome, which is kind of cool in my opinion. Black face mask, can't go wrong. But it's kind of harkening back to the Super Bowl winning Tampa Bay. And I mean, think about the jersey sales, man, because they probably already sold a lot of jerseys with Tom Brady signing. They probably are going to sell more now because of the Tom Brady sign. I don't know if people were waiting until the new uniforms came out. I didn't know they were coming out with new uniforms, to be honest. So, I mean, I'm sure some people are kind of pissed and might be looking for an exchange there. But Levante David, who's the linebacker he's a pretty good linebacker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Here's what he had to say. Knowing that they were victorious in those uniforms, similar to our uniforms, I feel like a lot of the guys on the team feel like we need to get back to that. And there's opportunity right now. I kind of get that feeling when I put them on. It's just different when you put those uniforms on. It reminds you of the times in Tampa when everything was on the up and up. Now we're trying to get it back to that way. New uniforms, new team, new look. Now we've just got to pull it all on the field. So there you go. And then he goes on to say, it's going to hit, I feel like Davis said when asked how it would feel to see Brady wearing the uniform for the first time, it's going to hit. Reality is going to set in. We've got one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, one of the greatest dudes, one of the greatest guys to play the position, and it's going to bring that winning mentality to our program. So Tampa Bay, they seem pretty happy about it. Now let's head over to the Atlanta Falcons. They released theirs on Wednesday here, and the main thing is that black is back. In the Falcons, they haven't worn black very often, but they announced Wednesday their new uniforms for the 2020 season, making the first redesign in 17 years. The new Falcons home uniform will feature black jerseys and black pants, so they're going all black for home, while the away look will be white on white. So they're pretty much going for all colorway here. But there are 8 uniform combinations, including a throwback version to the 1966 team and a rise-up alternate uniform. So you have the all-black, that's their official home. You got the all-white, that's their official away. Then they have their throwback from 1966, which is their nice throwbacks with the old Falcon. It's just black and then white pants and stuff like that. It looks pretty nice. Then you have the rise-up alternate uniform, which is like red gradient to black, and then you have black pants. It looks bad. I just want to say. So these uniforms, I'm not a big fan of. They're kind of basic. They're kind of just too simple. I understand like minimalism is more of a thing these days, and I love minimalism, especially when it comes to logos and stuff like that. But when it comes to uniforms, you need a little more nuance there. But their uniforms are literally just, I mean, they have like a line down the side there, but their uniforms just have very ugly block. I don't like the font of the ATL on the front. The numbers, they're okay. The Carolina Panthers made a funny Twitter post comparing them to the what is it called? The longest yard uniforms. Some people have compared them to XFL uniforms, stuff like that. So team owner Arthur Blank addressed the changes in a letter, starting by discussing the coronavirus pandemic. Yeah, and he referenced the importance of the back to black theme. Black has been part of our history since 1966. Both our fans and players have asked us to bring it back. The ATL moniker is known around the world, and we now wear it proudly as a badge of unity, diversity, and togetherness. Something our world needs more of, especially in these tough times. So like I mentioned, it includes 4 jerseys, black home, white away, gradient alternate, and 66 throwbacks, 4 pants, black, white, red, and throwbacks, and 1 helmet, which is satin black. And they have now new chrome face mask, which the face mask looks pretty good for the black helmets. looks pretty good there. So they used nearly 2 decades of fan research and collected reaction from focus groups online and social media. They also took input from current and former players who decided it would be wise to own red, but bring on the black, reflect the progress of the city, and keep things simple while staying true to the roots. Internal discussions for the change began in 2016, with the process officially beginning in January 2018. It was a collaborative effort with the NFL and Nike to produce the final product. So, Matt Ryan, quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, says there's just a feeling to it. I can't explain it. When you look in your locker, and that color and head to toe in black is going to be good too. I don't know what it is, but I know there's a feeling that comes with it for the guys too, when we see that in our lockers. Grady Jarrett, defensive tackle, said, I think the new uniforms give the city new energy, and I think people are really going to be excited about it. And then Dan Quinn also expresses enthusiasm of not getting fired yet. I couldn't be more thrilled to see this look come together. Not only will the players be happy, I think our fans will be happy. I know the head coach is. During this tough time for so many, we hope this new look gives our fans something to look forward to. Well, so far, no, I mean, I've seen some mixed reactions on Twitter about it. I mean, mostly it's negative, in my opinion. But then again, they're from other fan bases. So I don't know how accurate that stuff is at the moment in time. But, you know, it's okay. It's all right. That's all I have to say for the Falcons. It's okay. But when we come back, we'll discuss the Dolphins. Will they trade up to get the number 1 pick and shock the world, if you will, when we return?
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So one of the bigger questions for the NFL draft right now is whether or not what are the Dolphins going to do with that number 5 pick? They could keep it, draft a quarterback, or use it to trade up and draft another quarterback. Of course, right now I believe mocks are giving them Justin Herbert or Tua Tagovailoa, depending on what happens between 2 and 4. It seems 100% likely that Joe Burrow will be going to Cincinnati. That just makes a lot of sense. That's kind of the unanimous number 1 pick that everyone says. However, you know, we're putting some danger in there. It might be a smokescreen, might be, you know, it's just something to scare Cincinnati a little bit, or not scare Cincinnati, scare Washington or scare Detroit or something like that to kind of make a decision and not get Chase Young. Maybe that might be the course of action here. I'm not really sure, but Miami's options are limited, and each trade possibility would have competition. Of course, the number 1 pick owned by Cincinnati right now seems highly unlikely for them to trade up and get that one. But there's a report that the Dolphins want to try to get LSU quarterback Joe Burrow. But the Bengals also want Burrow. So why would the Bengals do anything like that? Why would they do anything like that? I mean, that makes no sense. I mean, for instance, if you're the Cincinnati Bengals and you have the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, and then you have Heisman Trophy winner LSU quarterback Joe Burrow, he's the prize. Why would you trade that pick? It would be insane. Nobody would understand why that would happen. But we need to start addressing the Burrow to Miami thoughts right now. So let's flip it around. If you're the Dolphins and you have the number 1 pick, what would you demand from the Bengals or any team in exchange for that pick? This is a league in which quarterback is the number 1 need. You need a quarterback to win games. I mean, you can go pretty far. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo, he was He was an average at best quarterback this past year, especially in the playoffs. Ryan and Tannehill struggled in the playoffs, and they made it to the AFC Championship game. So, I mean, but the fact of the matter is, if you do not have a solid built team around you, hence the Dolphins, you need a quarterback. And the Bengals, they seem done with Andy Dalton. They seem done with the Andy Dalton, I wouldn't say experiment, because Andy Dalton played pretty well for the Bengals, in my opinion, for the entire time he was there. But so when you have a top-notch prospect in your sights, a possible franchise quarterback, why in the world would you send him to another team? But here's the thing. Of course Miami wants Joe Burrow. Of course. Everyone wants Joe Burrow. Everyone who doesn't have an Aaron Rodgers, a Patrick Mahomes, whatever, they want Joe Burrow probably. The Carolina Panthers probably want Joe Burrow right now. But the fact of the matter is, you can't. There's only one team that can have him. And the best team in that spot right now is the Cincinnati Bengals with the number 1 pick. The only reason the Cincinnati Bengals wouldn't get Joe Burrow, which, by the way, would still be insane if they don't, but the only way I could see this working out is they either re-sign Andy Dalton, sign Cam Newton or Jameis Winston, trade that number 1 pick or get Chase Young with that number 1 pick, trade that number 1 pick for more picks, or draft Chase Young with that number 1 pick, throwing the whole draft out of whack, because the Redskins are going to get Burrow then. If they draft Chase Young at number 1. I mean, that would throw the whole draft out of whack. That would be a lot of fun to watch, in my opinion, but I don't think they're going to take a chance on 31-year-old Cam Newton, or I don't think they're going to take a chance on Jameis Winston. When you have I wouldn't say a sure thing, because there's been plenty of number 1 picks in the NFL draft that didn't work out, especially at quarterback. I wouldn't say Joe Burrow is a sure thing, but I mean, if you are where the Bengals are, where they still have AJ Green, they have a pretty solid defense and offense they can build around Joe Burrow, then why would you take a chance on a Cam Newton or on a Jameis Winston when you can just get Joe Burrow? You can kind of mold him to what you want him to be, and, stuff like that. I mean, to be honest, if I was a Bengals fan, I'd kind of be cheering for that. I know you want Joe Burrow, he's like the hometown kid or whatever, but if you get Cam Newton who's out there trying to prove everyone that he deserves to be on an NFL team, you get Cam Newton, get that solid team built around him, and then you use that draft pick to either trade back, get more picks, or draft Chase Young. And then your defensive line becomes even better. I mean, that stuff would be great and all, but that's probably not happening. They're probably going to get Joe Burrow, and then, yeah. So, the number 2 pick, what about the number 2 pick? It's owned by Washington Redskins. There's some possibilities there, but it's doubtful the team wants to pass on Ohio State defensive end Chase Young. There have been rumors that Washington might go after Tua, or blanking on his name, Justin Herbert. They could go after one of them, but I don't see it. The Redskins, they already got Dwayne Haskins, and I don't think they're willing to give up on Dwayne Haskins just yet, but it is a possibility. It could possibly happen. However, I don't see that happening. But there are some possibilities for Washington there. They do have some other holes to plug up. So, I mean, they have other holes to plug up. They did try to sign Amari Cooper. Couldn't get the star receiver from returning to Dallas. Cody Lattimore wouldn't come close to solving concerns about outside receiver. They're looking for an outside receiver. Defensive line help wouldn't hurt. Stuff like that. Tight end, maybe. That's what they're looking for, but you can't pass up on Chase Young. He's a huge talent, especially here in the defensive line. Number 3 pick, Detroit Lions. Detroit has mentioned that they might want to trade back. There's been rumors going around that they might want to trade back. This is where Miami realistically can start exploring if it wants to take Tua Tagovailoa who of course becomes there's medical red flags because of his ankle, because of his hip, stuff like that, and especially in the last few years. To acquire this number 3 pick from the Lions, they might have to battle a team such as the Chargers, who also need a quarterback. Chargers own this number 6 pick. And then a bidding war with any team could run the price up to an uncomfortable level. But Miami has handled the situation pretty well so far. If you're not sure whether this new Dolphins administration, led by General Manager Chris Grier and Coach Brian Flores, knows what they're doing, take comfort knowing they've played the draft game brilliantly so far. In the past few weeks, Miami has been linked to LSU quarterback Joe Burrow. They've been linked to Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. They've been linked to Oregon quarterback Justin Herbert. While at the same time, a reminder was brought up, Miami owner Steve Ross might not be sold on Tagovailoa. No one knows what the Dolphins are thinking with the number 5 pick. More than likely, they're going for a quarterback, because right now they have Ryan Fitzpatrick. They have Ryan Fitzpatrick and they have Josh Rosen. That's your 2 quarterbacks on that team. So more than likely, they're going for a quarterback, unless Chase Young is still available, a huge talent like Chase Young or something like that was available. But no one knows what they're thinking. I mean, they've said they're interested in all 3 quarterbacks. They must consider it a must to draft a quarterback in the first round, but perhaps they're okay with that not happening. It'd be hard to believe, but no one knows for sure because the Dolphins successfully muddied up the waters. But more than likely, they're going to draft Justin Herbert. More than likely. That's going to be the only quarterback available. Tua's either going to drop to the Chargers, in my opinion. He's either going to drop to the Chargers or the Lions are going to draft him. The Lions drafting him doesn't make a lot of sense because Matthew Stafford, although he does have some injury issues, Matthew Stafford is still a really good quarterback in this league, and most of the time, he's kind of like Tony Romo. Actually, that's perfect. That's a perfect analogy. He's Tony Romo, except for the Lions. Because the Lions don't succeed, but it's not because of Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford throws for 4,000 yards every year. Matthew Stafford's insane at quarterback. Just saying. But here's another thing. I mean, the Dolphins, they have 3 first round picks. The number 5, the number 18, and the number 26. So they could easily trade up to number 3 if Detroit wants them to. They could trade up to number 2 if the Redskins are up to trading as well. So they could trade up, get Chase Young. But we won't know until it actually happens, and I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but there's a lot of moving parts that could happen here. I personally like the Bengals screwing everything up by getting Cam Newton out of nowhere. So that's what I'm voting for, but we all know that's probably not going to happen. So when we return, I just found a spider in my room. When we return, we'll talk about the Premier League financial. We'll head into the financials of the Premier League and how teams might be struggling right now when we return.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
So because of the coronavirus, is the intro that I would do for most segments now. Because of the coronavirus, the Premier League is not playing. They suspended operations. The news cycle has been dominated. They've suspended operations. I don't know when exactly they suspended because I don't really pay attention to the Premier League, but I'm assuming it was sometime when Italy shut down and stuff like that. But the Premier League has been suspended for a while, for at least a month, I think. The news cycle has been dominated by talk of bailouts, pay cuts, potential lawsuits, as the professional game has struggled with the greatest financial threat it has faced in peacetime. Now, here's the thing, though. Here's an interesting thing to think about. How is one of the most profitable leagues in the entire world struggling this hard with finances? So football is far from alone in this regard. Construction, retail, travel, any sector that depends on people being able to go out, congregate, and spend freely is in a fight for survival. Getting through this will depend on a combination of luck, nimble management, and what state you were in when it started. To paraphrase former British Prime Minister David Cameron's favorite criticism of his predecessor, did you fix the roof while the sun was shining? The Athletic analyzed all of the Premier League club accounts filed at Companies House over the last few months, and the answer for the majority of them would appear to be there has been very little do-it-yourself done ahead of this storm. The accounts are awful, says John Purcell, who's the co-founder of financial analysis firm Visibel. The numbers had fallen off a cliff for some of the clubs long before this crisis. So while Dr. Dan Plumlee, a sports finance expert at Sheffield Hallam University, says the financial shock of COVID-19 has brought to light just how stretched the industry is and how many clubs live from hand to mouth. Crystal Palace and Newcastle United have taken advantage of an emergency measure that gives businesses 3 extra months to publish their year-end figures. So we do not know yet for sure what impact the 2018-2019 season had on their books. But we do know what happened at the other 18 clubs, and it is stuff of accountants' nightmares. So if we use the 2017-2018 figures for Palace and Newcastle, the league's total income last season was 4.8 billion euros. I'm assuming that's euros. I don't know. American, sorry. With most clubs reporting rises, albeit mainly small ones. In all 3 revenue streams, broadcast, commercial, and match day. Unfortunately, as that other great business sage and former Tottenham owner Alan Sugar memorably pointed out, this money goes through clubs like Prune Juice. Of the 18 teams for which we have up-to-date numbers, only Watford reduced their wage bill year on year. If we include the old figures for Palace and Newcastle, which are almost certainly lower than last season, the league's overall staff cost topped 3 billion euros. This means they spent 64% of their income on wages. But that is just the average. Bournemouth, Everton, Leicester all spent more than 80% of their turnover on staff. In fact, exactly half the league spent more than 70% of their income on wages, a level that automatically raises red flags for European football's governing body, the UEFA. According to Deloitte's annual review of football finance last May, the wage/turnover ratio was rising across Europe's Big Five leagues, England, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain, with the Premier League's figure rising from 55% in 2016-2017 to 59% 12 months later. So, Premier League financial stats, wage over turnover, in 2018-2019, Sheffield United is up 195%, Aston Villa is up 175%, Norwich is up 161%, everyone else is under 100%, but the lowest is Tottenham, which went up 39% still. So, the wage turnover figures for 3 promoted teams, Aston Villa, Norwich City, and Sheffield United, are even worse at 175%, 161%, and 195%, respectively, but that is par for the course in the championship, which is a disaster zone for those who like balanced books and tidy profits. Just to underline what those figures mean, Sheffield United spent 1.95 pence on wages for every €1 that came in. Is that pound? It might be pound. I don't know. I don't know what these fancy symbols are. It might be pound. I'm not going to be. I'm going to be honest with you. It might be pound, especially since I think P is pence. Anyways, travel costs, utility costs, repairs, insurance, paper clips, they all add up, and pretty soon they start nibbling into the overdraft. The cumulative pre-tax loss for the 18 clubs to have filed their accounts in nearly £300 million. We're just going to go pounds from now on. Lots of the clubs are in a terrible state, says Purcell. I'm not picking on them, but I was not surprised to see reports this week that West Ham are looking for extra financing of $30 million. It's so predictable. The use of averages and totals also irons out perhaps the most obvious point to make about the state of the industry before the pandemic struck. The Premier League is not a collection of equals, which is obvious. The NFL is not a collection of equals. MLB is not a collection of equals. No sports league is a collection of equals, because more than likely the New York, Los Angeles, the Texas team, they're more likely going to have more money. Just saying. 6 richest clubs account for nearly $3 billion or 61% of that total turnover. Arsenal, who have slid in recent seasons to 6 in the Big Six mini league, earned $367.5 million in 2017-2018, $176.8 million more than West Ham's best of the rest, total of $190.7 million. That deficit is about the same as Bournemouth and Aston Villa brought in between them. As you can see, as I already told you, turnover, you have Manchester United and Man City. They lead. You have Manchester United, Man City, Liverpool. They're in the top 3 here. Then at the bottom is Sheffield with $29.9 million in turnover. So the league's biggest earner, Manchester United, turns over more than 3 times as much as West Ham and exactly 4 times as much as Crystal Palace and Southampton. Manchester City and Liverpool second and third in the money list, and as competitive off the pitch as they were on the pitch that season, earned 4 times the amount of Bournemouth brought in. So the only way the clubs further down the economic ladder can even hope to compete with the big earners on the pitch is to spend a higher percentage of their income on salaries and ask their owners to keep topping up the shortfalls. These clubs also tend to be more reliant on the league's main source of income, which is, say it with me everybody, broadcast rights, television, yay! We discussed that 2 weeks ago. If there was one economic marker that tells the story of English football's rise from the tragedy of the Bradford City Fire and the Highsell Stadium disaster in 1985 and Hillsborough in 1989, it would be the incredible amounts of companies around the world that have been willing to pay to televise sports, soccer. When the Premier League split from the English Football League in 1992, the top flight's domestic rights were worth less than $40 million a season. Nobody even noticed what the international rights were worth. This season, the clubs will share about $2.5 billion in broadcasting rights between them, with the rest going in parachute and solidarity payments to the EFL. Assorted goods, causes, and central cost, these rights deals have been negotiated centrally, usually on a 3-year basis, and distributed more evenly than any other big league in Europe. The best clubs will still get more than the worst, but the margin is tighter than in France, Germany, Italy, or Spain, creating the idea that the Premier League is more competitive. So the key landmarks are the back-to-back increases of 70% in the Premier League managed to persuade domestic rivals BT and Sky Sports to cough up in 2012 and 2015. 2 broadcasters declared a truce before the 2018 rights auction, resulting in a slightly reduced return for the league, but nobody really minded as the appetite for English football abroad means the international rights are now nearly as valuable as domestic ones, with 30% increase from overseas deals, and overall 2019-2022 broadcast pot is 8% up. So, of course, we discussed it 2 weeks ago. TV rights mean nothing if you're not putting anything on TV, so they're losing all of that money there. They're losing all that money right there just based off not playing. So, the Premier League has been giving people around the world what they want for nearly 30 years, but now for reasons beyond its control, it cannot, and because it has perhaps been a little too generous with its players and their representatives, it is not in as robust a position as a position of its stature should be. You do not need to be an accountant to know that Bournemouth, who gets 88% of their revenue from broadcasters and spend almost all of that on wages, are in a tough spot. Even frugal Burnley, with their balanced books, lean very heavily on the league's biggest backers. Getting football back on fan screens is of paramount importance to them, as we mentioned 2 weeks ago. TV is so important. So important. Nobody's immune. Manchester City, perhaps with almost limitless wealth of Abu Dhabi behind them, will emerge relatively unscathed, and Manchester United's many mattress and noodles partners do not look so stupid now. Everyone is looking for other sources of income, but they and the other big clubs need the exposure the Premier League and the Champions League give them to make their numbers add up. So there's a lot of teams in the Premier League that are kind of struggling here, which you don't really expect them to, because it's the Premier League. You don't think of the Premier League teams ever struggling on anything. But when we return, that's it for the Premier League. When we return, we'll talk about coronavirus, how it could cause a youth sports recession when we return.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
So I found this great article on the Wall Street Journal by Rachel Bachman. She published it yesterday, or on Tuesday, April 7th, and it is titled "Coronavirus Could Cause Youth Sports Recession. Kids are at home instead of on ball fields, and the slumping economy means some could stay there." So I'm going to give you a gist of I'm going to tell you everything that this article goes through, but I'll be breaking in tidbits during all of it. So, early 2016, Thomas Bach traveled to Silicon Valley to ask Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Google for advice. Bach is the president of the International Olympic Committee. Wanted to learn how the multi-billion-dollar Olympic Games, for decades a broadcast TV juggernaut, could better reach young audiences. Bach told the companies he also saw them as competitors. As kids spend more time on their habit-forming wares, he worried they were spending less time playing sports, and the fewer of them might go on to become Olympians. He mentioned in a 2018 interview that the smaller the base of the pyramid, the weaker the pyramid at the end, which makes sense. Bach's fear of physical inactivity are growing before our eyes, where millions of kids are hunkered down on the couch amid stay-at-home orders to curb the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. Swimming pools are closed. Basketball hoops removed from public courts. School teams' seasons postponed or canceled. Organizers hope the halt in kids' sports will end in the coming weeks or months, but with 10 million Americans applying for unemployment benefits in March, the sudden financial hit from coronavirus could lead to a long-term hole in opportunities for kids to play. There are already signs it is starting to erode funding for the development of future Olympians as the governing bodies react to the postponement of the Tokyo 2020 Games. The short-term impact is going to be dramatic, said Dave DuPont, CEO and co-founder of Team Snap, which provides software used by nearly 23 million people to coordinate activities, mostly in youth sports. Organizations are not going to survive. There are not going to be as many around. Team Snap has been seeing an 80% drop in usage of his app, DuPont said, and he recently was forced to furlough half the company's staff of about 100. President Trump tweeted on Saturday for Little League players to hang in there and continued, "We will get through this together and bats will be swinging before you know it." But Little League International has suspended activities through at least May 11th and has shown little sign that its 2 million baseball and softball players worldwide will be playing soon. Little League president and CEO Steve Keener said he's optimistic parents will find a way to overcome the slumping economy and get their kids back into sports once they resume. "I know as a parent myself, you'll do things for your kids and you'll put down your own needs on the back burner in order for them to have what they enjoy, but the global recession of 2007 through 2009 suggests there could be long-term damage." So, the share of children regularly playing team sports in the U.S. dropped from nearly 45% in 2008 to 38% in 2014, according to data from the Sports and Fitness Industry Association. So even by 2018, when the economy had greatly improved, the share of kids playing sports hadn't rebounded, and there's a good reason why, which I will discuss that towards the end. Little League pledges not to deny a child the opportunity to participate due to the inability to pay, but sudden downturn from month-old pandemic is unlike anything that has come before it. In Huntington, New York, Tri-Village Little League, one parent asked for a refund of the $175 fee after she and her husband were furloughed from their jobs. League volunteer Roger Snyder said, "The mom called me up and said, we really kind of need it. Neither of us are working. Many leagues rely heavily on player fees to operate, and registrations have come to a standstill." Lynn Berlin Manuel oversees a group of 30,000 soccer coaches at all levels of the sport, estimates that by the time it's safe to resume play, as many as 25 to 30% of youth soccer clubs in the U.S. could have folded. That goes lower or higher based on the time element, he said. He's the CEO of the United Soccer Coaches. In recent years, the rising cost of playing youth sports, including pricey travel teams, has created a growing divide. Less than 22% of kids in the lowest household income bracket played sports on a regular basis in 2018. About twice that share, 43% of children of household incomes of $100,000 and above, did. This crisis could force even more of a divide, said DuPont. Leaders hope that the pandemic could force a rethinking of how kids' sports are organized and supported. Unlike many other countries, the U.S. has no Ministry of Sports. The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee isn't government-funded. Youth sports are a multi-billion-dollar industry of independent for-profit and non-profit groups that have little to no financial reserves. Because it is private-driven, it's going to suffer. There's no question about that, said Clay Walker, executive director of the National Fitness Foundation, which is the only congressional chartered nonprofit focused on health and fitness. But I believe when the re-examination happens, people are going to say, we need to take care of our country. Youth sports are an important way of creating equity health so that everybody has an equal opportunity. Late last year, the NFF launched the National Endowment for Youth Sports, a nonpartisan nonprofit fund that youth sports organizations can apply for grants. The aim is to fight on two fronts: rising obesity levels and the increased cost of kids playing sports. The endowment aims to raise $100 million by 2023. Something Walker acknowledges will be a challenge in the post-coronavirus financial world. Meanwhile, the cuts keep coming. Facing a budget crunch due to event cancellations, national governing body USA Cycling decided to protect the funding for athletes it's helping get to the postponed Tokyo Olympics in 2021. To do so, it's curtailing investment in younger riders. We basically furloughed youth development Olympic efforts, Paris and Los Angeles, said Rob DeMartini, USA Cycling president and CEO. The 6-month hiatus could have a little bit more effect on athletes than has already had. The races they would have done have been canceled. So, youth sports are very important in the grand scheme of things, for everything. Every professional athlete you see has played a youth sport at one point. Youth sports are important not only for the children, for them to get their physical activity and stuff like that, stay healthy. It's also important for just sports in general. I mean, you see baseball. Baseball's trying to get their youth movement a little bit more because less and less kids are playing Little League Baseball. Football, there's a huge issue for football because with concussions and stuff like that coming to light, Little League football is now becoming a little bit more dangerous, and people don't want their kids to play it, which is understandable in my opinion. I believe kids shouldn't get to play football until at least middle school, at least. But so you have all that going on. But youth sports is very important for the development of sports, because you can't have a sport if you don't have new people coming in. I mean, that's just true. But it's especially tough for these Olympic sports. Like I mentioned, cycling. It's going to be tough on cycling. It's going to be tough on track and field. It's going to be tough on gymnastics, stuff like that. Now, gymnastics, it's more of a private thing, I believe, but they do have organizations and they do have programs where anybody can do it. Anybody can do it, no matter how much their parents make or anything like that. The bottom line is, this is going to be an issue, and there's going to be an issue that we're going to have to look over once this is all done. Because now kids, they get to stay indoors, they get to play video games, and guess what? Like we mentioned a week ago or something like that, esports are going to become bigger now. That's my opinion. I think esports are going to become more and more popular. They're already pretty popular amongst kids. Kids watch Twitch, watch people play video games all the time on Twitch. It is a huge thing. YouTube's audience is a lot of children. So with that, every kid wants to become a YouTuber now. You add that with the fact that they're not going outside, they're not allowed to go outside, they're not allowed to go play sports with their friends, you're going to see a huge downturn on youth sports, and you're going to see a huge downturn on young athletes. Now, of course, you do have Of course, high school sports are still huge, especially since it costs next to nothing to join a high school sport and stuff like that. You just have to make the team, basically. Or in my case, I played for a football team that had no cuts, so you basically just try out and you make the team, basically, as long as you keep up with conditioning and stuff like that. You can get kicked off the team, of course. But that's stuff that is, that is a thing that could happen, but it is important that the youths, I'm 23 and I'm saying the youths, but it's important for them to play more sports and, improve the league, improve all of the leagues that we love watching, So this is a big issue here. If you see an opportunity to donate to any of these places, do it. Just do it. It's not going to hurt you. So, Save You Sports, that's pretty much where I'm at right now. They might not be in complete danger like I'm saying right now, but you never know. We'll find out. So, when we come back, we'll do 59 through 50 of the Athletics top 100 sports movies of all time when we come back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, here we go, folks. We are back talking about top 100 sports movies according to all the writers at the wonderful Athletic. We are heading into 59 through 50. 69 through 60 was the best 10 movies that I've gone through so far, mostly because I've actually seen them, and also the movies were pretty good. We ended off on the Mighty Ducks. I was running out of time, so I couldn't talk about the Mighty Ducks as much as I wanted to, but that's fine. We'll get over it. We'll move past. But we had Rocky 4. We had Rocky 3, which I'm sure we're going to see Rocky 2 here in a little bit, probably. You had a Creed 2, which I haven't seen, but I've heard it's really good. Stuff like that. So let's head into 59 through 50. We're heading to the halfway mark of this, and we are halfway for me trying to figure out another daily topic to talk about, which I'll figure it out. Don't worry about me. But anyways, number 59 is the Hurricane 1999 average rating of 78.52. So, this is based off a Bob Dylan movie, believe it or not. 1975's poetic anthem Hurricane was about a racially motivated triple murder conviction of middleweight contender Reuben Hurricane Carter. It's followed brilliantly on screen by Denzel Washington, convincing betrayal in this 1999 film. Won him a Golden Globe for Best Actor, and he probably should have earned him an Oscar. We don't really know, but I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard the song. The song's really good. If you have never heard the song Hurricane by Bob Dylan, it's a good song. Although, there are some things about the song. Reuben Hurricane Carter was not going to be the heavyweight champion of the world. According to Bob Dylan, he was going to be the heavyweight champion of the world. He was not going to be the heavyweight champion of the world. He was a middleweight guy. But, yeah, so, I mean, he was convicted of a triple murder. And, I mean, nobody's really sure who exactly did it, but he got wrongly accused of it, and he got wrongly convicted for it. So, Hurricane, I mean, it's got Denzel Washington in it. You can't go wrong with Denzel Washington, in my opinion. And he won a Golden Globe for it, so check it out. Now, 58, Cinderella Man, 2005, average rating of 79.02. Russell Crowe did a great job portraying one of boxing's most unlikely heavyweight champions, James J. Braddock. More than a sports movie, Cinderella Man is a period piece that nicely depicts the struggles of a Great Depression and Braddock's rise as the hero for the working man. So, Cinderella Man, I'm pretty sure I have seen this before, but I'm not 100% positive. Probably means I haven't seen it, to be honest. But it's another boxing movie. We have a lot of boxing movies here. It's directed by Ron Howard. Won some Screen Actor Guild Awards. Nominated for Academy Award for Best Actor in a Supporting Role. It's got an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, so, it sounds pretty good. It's another boxing movie. It's based in the Great Depression, so, there's a lot you can't go wrong there. Number 57, The Warrior, or just Warrior. 2011, average rating 79.06. The bar is set awfully low for MMA flicks. However, with fantastic acting, incredible fight scenes, and a story that packs a punch, Warrior is impressive, regardless of genre. For fight fans specifically, the attention to the details of this fictional MMA world will be appreciated. I don't care. I'm not an MMA guy, as we discussed when I talked about UFC that one time. I'm not that much of an MMA guy, so yeah. Not interested, unfortunately. Number 56, Murder Ball, 2005, average rating of 79.22. Need some extra motivation? Watch this 2005 documentary about the U.S. and Canada Paralympic wheelchair rugby teams. It has everything: drama, humor, sadness, and triumph, and shows just how badass we all can be when we start getting after it. Don't know what that is. It's a documentary about Paralympics wheelchair rugby teams, which I didn't know wheelchair rugby is a thing. How does that work? I'm not trying to be I just don't know how that would work, but it sounds interesting to say the least. Number 55, Happy Gilmore, 1996, average rating of 79.33. Who among us hasn't tried hitting a golf ball after a running start? Adam Sandler defined the 90s with his slew of juvenile comedies, and Happy Gilmore is at the top of the list. The one-liners are too many to count, and he got beat up by Bob Barker. Enough said. I have seen Happy Gilmore. It is a fantastic movie. I have, when you go to Topgolf, they specifically tell you not to hit the ball like that. They tell you not to Happy Gilmore it. It's one of the first things they tell you to do, is to not Happy Gilmore it. So, Happy Gilmore, it is a hilarious movie with a lot of memorable quotes and stuff like that. Great actors. I think Chris Farley's not in it. This is after Chris Farley passed away. But it's a pretty solid movie in my opinion. It also has Bob Barker beating up Adam Sandler. Number 54, Kingpin, 1996, average rating of 79.38. A gross-out comedy of the highest order. Scenes like Roy Munson's cow milking mishap, Ishmael's introduction to dental floss, and Roy Landlord's post-coital bliss could make Pink Flamingo's era Josh Waters blush. Plus, Bill Murray dripping sleaze and self-satisfaction as Big Ern McCracken both steals the show and somehow anticipates professional bowling's recent turn towards kitsch and showmanship. If you're not up on Kingpin, you've Munsoned your life. I don't know what that means because I'm not up on Kingpin, but apparently I need to get up on Kingpin. It has Bill Murray in it, so that automatically makes it a movie that I need to see. So, Kingpin. Number 53, 8 Men Out, 1988, average rating of 79.75. This movie is historically inaccurate, but highly entertaining. It has some of the best baseball action seen on the big screen. Costumes are fantastic. The cast is impressive, and having a young John Cusack play the homely Buck Weaver is a major aesthetic improvement for the character. So, 8 Men Out is about the 1919 Black Sox. I have seen this movie. It's a very well-made movie. There are historical inaccuracies in there. It depends how much you actually care about that, though. It is a good movie. I mean, they do a pretty good job at portraying Shoeless Joe Jackson and stuff like that. Which, by the way, Shoeless Joe Jackson did nothing wrong. I just want to let you know. He is from Greenville, South Carolina, so I kind of have a pride about him for some reason. So the minor league baseball stadium in Greenville, right across the street is where Shoeless Joe grew up. Like, there's a little house, it's like a museum. That's where Shoeless Joe grew up. Like, for real. Right next to the train tracks. It's crazy. But, 8 Men Out. Great movie. I've seen it before, so it's a good movie. Number 52, Longest Yard, 1974, average rating of 80.06. Like many sports movies from the 70s, Longest Yard has many scenes that haven't aged well. Director Robert Aldrich, who made some of the most testosterone-filled movies in history, such as Kiss Me Deadly and The Dirty Dozen, doesn't skimp on it here either, as underdog cons led by Burt Reynolds go up against well-oiled semi-pro team made up of prison guards. The football scenes work as real NFLers Joe Kapp and Ray Nitschke I don't know how to say that name. Give the action some semblance of authenticity. It doesn't hurt that Reynolds, who played football at Florida State, aces the part of the disgraced game-throwing QB Paul Crewe. So I've seen bits and pieces of this one. I've seen the newer one with Adam Sandler in it. I've seen bits and pieces of the older one. So I don't know it as well, but as long as you can't really go wrong with The Longest Yard, in my opinion, but, I guess you can. Number 51, Rounders, 1998, average rating of 80.1. Rounders writers Brian Koppelman and Dave Levion to thank for my favorite memories at Michigan State. After this movie came out, we started a Wednesday night poker game that quickly became required every week. We get a few $5 pizzas from the student union, pick up a 30-pack of Old Milwaukee's Best Light for $10 from Big Ten Party Store, and play Hold'em until we were broke. The conversation was just a series of Rounders quotes and horribly Teddy KGB impressions. I'm paying you with your own money. Check, check, check. Pay that man his money. I lost enough in that weekly game that walking back to apartment 110 in Water's Edge would be like Buckner walking back into Shea, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. So I don't know what Rounders is, gonna be honest, but the guy who wrote this seems to like it a lot. I don't know what it is, though, so I can't really comment on it, but, it is about poker. It's got Matt Damon in it. There you go. And then number 50, Uncut Gems, which this recently came out. This came out in 2019. I've not seen this one yet. I've been meaning to see it for a while now. Average rating of 80.16. So much to like about Uncut Gems, from the casting, Kevin Garnett's very good apparently, to the constant background noise that really makes you feel the stress of a sports bettor walking in all-time tightrope, or at least what I imagine that would be like. So immersive that the insanity of betting opening tip props as part of an already long shot parlays manages to feel normal. Any time of no sports, watching this movie is a hell way to get the adrenaline pumping. So I haven't seen this one yet. I've been actually meaning to see this before I saw it on this list. I didn't even know it was a sports movie, to be honest. I didn't know. I just saw Adam Sandler was in it, and I saw all the ratings came up. Everybody really liked it. I just haven't seen it. But that is it. That is 59 through 50. We'll do 49 through 40 on Sunday. And we'll probably finish this all up by next Sunday, unfortunately for me. But that is it for the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. If you like the podcast, like, rate, subscribe to wherever you get your podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Strickland_Josh if you want to yell at me for anything I did. And then I'll see you guys on Sunday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.